I was saying, y'all, about Rico from StreetScores, and I have some updates on a lot of rumors going around for the Washington Commanders right now, and it's mostly a wide receiver market update, and I want to explain why we should be thankful and appreciative of the Deebo Samuel trade that we made, because the grass is not always greener. Also, are we potentially looking at signing 2 Jets veterans, a wide receiver and a cornerback? We're going to dive into those, of course, why and why not, and right now, for some reason, the Commanders are the second highest odds to sign Eagles cornerback Darius Slay. We're going to dive into all that and more, but before we do, first of all, I have a trivia question for you. The trivia question is, what Ring of Fame linebacker wore uniform number 51 for Washington from 1979 to 1994? And I definitely would have never have guessed this one. If you know this one off the top of your head with no research, you are legendary in Redskins fandom. But before we get into everything, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinion video just like this one. Again, so many video ideas. It's just a matter of having the free time to finally sit down, organize them, record them, edit them, get them out to y'all. So make sure you stay tuned for everything. I'm working on a post Deebo Samuel, post combine results mock draft. So stay tuned for that. Without further ado, let's go and dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so first of all, let's dive into this wide receiver market right now, which is going to pretty much lead us into why we may potentially actually consider going to get a Davante Adams if he ends up cut. And we also got to break down why Davante Adams more than likely will be cut. There are strong reports saying that he'll more than likely just end up getting cut instead of traded. We'll get there, though. But the Bengals went ahead and placed a franchise tag on T. Higgins yesterday as of March 3rd. I'm recording this right now at 1:10 a.m. March 4th. So it technically feels like today for me. But either way, T. Higgins got tagged. You know, the franchise tag window opened up before the combine, and I was like, well, if the Bengals didn't tag him yet, are they planning on not doing it at all? And then the tag came, which, I mean, I assumed that they would tag him. It just happened later than I expected. I just assumed it would have happened the day that they were allowed to tag him. I just thought he would have been tagged immediately. I don't know what happened over the course of the past week. Maybe they tried to negotiate with him just a little bit more, and then T. Higgins wasn't budging on whatever number he has, and they were like, I bet we're just gonna tag you. And so a long anticipated long-term deal for T. Higgins, and the Cincinnati Bengals will have to wait for at least a little longer, more than likely another year, if he ends up actually even accepting that tag and playing on it and all of that type of stuff, which I doubt he does. I don't see why he wouldn't just go ahead and hold out and force them to trade him, tag and trade, whatever it is. The Bengals announced on Monday that they have used their franchise tag on Higgins for a second straight year. Second straight. Adding that they intend to continue to work with Higgins, quote, towards a long-term deal in Cincinnati, unquote, which is crazy because they're trying to figure out how they're going to pay Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson, and T. Higgins all long-term. Right now, they're trying to get it all done this offseason. There's not enough cap space in the world, man. There's not enough cap space in the world to get that done. And so the wide receiver initially announced the news on social media. We all heard from him. He literally posted a tweet, tag, period. That's it. Lowercase t, ag, dot. That was it. You could tell he's upset and disgruntled. He definitely doesn't seem happy about the situations. Now, the parties have until July 15th to work out an extension under this tag. So this is more so the Bengals' strategy to allow them to have more time to negotiate with them instead of him just straight up hitting free agency as an unrestricted free agent by the time the tag deadline ends. So they're like, okay, we have until July 15th if we tag him to try and figure out a long-term solution. I mean, we're now going on a full year now that they've been trying to do this, and over a year actually, and they still haven't done it. I don't know why they think they can do it now, because if anything, the price has only gone up. They should have paid him whatever price he was asking for last year, because I'm pretty sure it was lower than what he's asking for this year. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what their strategy is. I don't think they've thought about this very well ahead of time, because we all know, especially as burgundy and gold fans, franchise tags never work out long term. Never. You're just holding that player hostage for another year or two, and then they're just going to end up leaving regardless. But for now, though, a resolution on a multi-year pack was not made ahead of Tuesday's 4 p.m. Eastern Time tag deadline, which is today. So later on today, by the time most of y'all are watching this, the tag deadline is either coming up or it's about to end. So this is it. You either tagged or not by 4 p.m. Tuesday, March 4th. And again, T. Higgins does not seem very happy about the situation at all. I mean, that tweet said it all. It was as plain as possible. He didn't even do an uppercase T with the tag, just lowercase. I mean, but which franchise tag player is ever happy about getting tagged? There's no long-term financial security in place, and now you have to basically fear all season of getting hurt or just having a down season for whatever reason, even if it's not even necessarily your fault. Maybe your quarterback isn't playing well, you know, as a receiver in particular, or your offensive coordinator doesn't call good plays. You're not getting the ball as much as you feel like or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But more likely than anything else, injuries are what scare franchise tag players, because then nobody will be willing to pay you the money that you rightfully deserve and should have gotten before you got tagged after the year that you got hurt in. So it just sucks, because now you have to go out there and play on another 1-year prove it deal when he feels like, what else do I have to prove? I fully understand T. Higgins, but my main point is, doesn't sound like he's available for the Washington Commanders. I was already thinking that we weren't going to sit there and try to outbid a lot of these other teams that were going to be willing to make him probably the highest paid wide receiver in the entire NFL. I already felt like we were out of the sweepstakes because of that. But now, best case scenario, you have to trade for him from the Bengals and sign him to a big time deal. Don't see it happening for the Commanders. We could just go ahead and, I mean, I feel like we could have even just weeks ago gotten rid of the idea that T. Higgins may somehow end up being a Commander. Now it's pretty much as good as gone. And then next up, Chris Godwin is not expected to get tagged, which will let him be a free agent, which is, I mean, I guess you can say that's good news if you still want another wide receiver. But first of all, the Raiders, Jaguars, Panthers, and Patriots are all expected to have interest. And secondly, I'm not sure if the Buccaneers will even let him go. They're just not tagging him. They're probably even confident in the fact that they can get a long-term deal done, so they don't feel the need to tag him. They're probably working on a deal right now. But it is confirmed that the Bucs will not franchise tag Chris Godwin, because it could result in a 144% raise, and they're not willing to pay that. They're hoping that they could get him on some type of long-term contract that a per annual value is less than whatever that 1 year on the tag would be against their cap space. But you even have Pewter reports saying Chris Godwin clearly wants to stay in Tampa Bay, and the Bucs clearly want him to stay in the red in Pewter. And a deal should get done, just a matter of when, not even if. So, the free agent wide receiver market is looking ugly. Even uglier than it looked just a few weeks ago. And to make things worse, this is a very top-heavy wide receiver draft class as well. So it's hard to even feel any sort of confident, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's really hard to feel any level of confidence that you can find a great wide receiver this offseason just in general, draft or free agency. Chris Godwin is projected to be the literally best #1 wide receiver available in free agency, and he's a wide receiver too, first of all, a really good one, an elite one, but he's still a wide receiver too at the end of the day, and he's coming off of a serious injury the previous season. I would love for him to come to the Commanders, but not the price for what he's more than likely going to end up getting, especially to return to the Buccaneers specifically. And like I just said, I'm pretty confident that, again, he'll just end up with the Buccaneers anyway. So then after you have T. Higgins and Chris Godwin basically off the market, off the table, then you have Amari Cooper, who had a very disappointing year with the Buffalo Bills, even though when we played the Browns earlier in the season, he looked like a guy that I would have loved to have added next to Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel. But something happened with that. After he got traded to the Bills, he wasn't the same. And he was given a lot of opportunities, a lot of targets, and he just did not make the most of them. He wasn't the same guy. This Stephon Diggs was not good. I mean, of course, he had the ACL tear, but even before then, he wasn't good. And then to make matters worse, he got hurt again in ACL. He may never even be as good as he once was, even before the injury, when again he wasn't very good at all this past season. And then you have DeAndre Hopkins, I guess, next. And then, I mean, his best attribute is catching the ball. You know, he had like that one season in Arizona where he never had a drop pass, and it was like a legendary moment, a legendary season a few years ago. And then he's in this Chiefs Super Bowl and drops a wide open pass, nobody within 10 yards of him. So like his one superpower that he had, he doesn't even have that yet. So I'll pass on that, you know. And then also, I mean, people think of him as like a way taller guy than he actually is. First of all, he's going to be 33 years old by the time the season starts. And I mean, people treat him as if he's like this 6'4", 6'5" wide receiver. I think he's only like 6'1". He just plays bigger than his size. And again, if he doesn't have the superpower hands that he normally does, I mean, that playing bigger than your size doesn't really even make sense, because how are you going to do it? Then I guess you have Marquise Brown next up, then Darius Slayton after that. I'm going in order of like the top wide receivers available in the free agency market. I mean, Keenan Allen. Then you have, we're all the way down to Deontay Johnson already, after only going through like maybe 7-8 names. Like, that's not good. This wide receiver market is atrocious, honestly. Deontay Johnson is the most red flag wide receiver I've seen doing it in a while, man. I mean, teams that need wide receiver not only are avoiding trading for him, but then even after they pick him up or trade for him or whatever, they're willing to release him. Like, man, we just can't do it. I mean, he's just like a locker room cancer just walking around. A powder, a complainer. It's bad. And the fact that he's arguably top 8, top 9 in wide receiver, like free agents that are available this free agency cycle, is insane. It's a bad wide receiver market, man. It's bad. And then I guess maybe you could consider the good receiving options that people speculate trading for, like a Garrett Wilson from the Jets or DK Metcalf from the Seahawks. But that's all rumors, because those guys haven't even requested trades from their teams yet, like Deebo Samuel did. Or maybe you want to go after Cooper Kupp after we already traded for Deebo. I mean, those are really your only options right there. And then again, this draft class is pretty top heavy, and I mean, I'm not sure, especially after trading for Deebo Samuel, the 5th round pick, that you're going to go wide receiver in the 1st round, let alone which wide receiver will even be available in the 1st round is worth taking 29th overall with as late as we draft. So my main point is, hopefully this makes y'all appreciate the Deebo Samuel trade just a little bit more. Because even though I still feel like we need another guy in that receiver room, at least we are not as desperate as a lot of these other teams out there that may reach way higher than they should for a wide receiver in the draft, or overpay for one in free agency as well. I mean, this 2025 wide receiver market is bad, and I'm glad we at least got something. I still feel like we need more, but at least we didn't walk away empty-handed. We had to give up a 5th round pick to do it, but I mean, 5th round picks typically don't have the impact that I believe Deebo Samuel is going to have for us this year anyway. So either way, moving on to the Jets free agents that we may target in free agency. Starting with Davante Adams. There was a report just back on March 2nd, technically like a day and a half ago, that the Jets are taking calls to potentially trade away wide receiver Davante Adams, per Ian Rappaport. The Jets traded a conditional 3rd round pick for Adams in October, and I'm pretty sure you cannot trade him again after the season he just had for the Jets for another 3rd rounder. But he has 67 catches, 854 yards, and 7 touchdowns in 11 games with the team. That's actually pretty efficient. Like, Davante Adams had a better season, like 11-game run with the Jets, than a lot of people actually give him credit for. 854 yards in 11 games is actually pretty good. I'm not mad at that at all. And so I would take that, but at the same time, man, again, if they traded a conditional 3rd round pick for Adams, and then it didn't work out in most people's eyes, then the most you could probably ask for in return after you traded a 3rd for him is maybe a 4th. And then shouts out to Jason at Over the Cap. He said, should come as no surprise. This was always a fake contract year for Adams, with a $36.25 million salary that was meant to either have a team cut him or work out an extension, and then it just never worked. And so trading them doesn't sound like a very realistic option right now. But still, Bleacher Report put out an article discussing all of the top 4 potential landing spots that, if Davante Adams were to somehow get traded, where he could go. The Green Bay Packers, they just straight up did Jair Alexander for wide receiver Davante Adams. And I'm pretty sure the Jets would not accept that trade, but there's that. But I guess that lets you know how low Davante Adams' market is right now, where he can go for Jair Alexander, as injury prone as he is right now, which is unbelievable. I mean, if I'm the Packers, yes, I would love that trade, but especially for Davante Adams to end up returning to his former team, that would be crazy. But Jair Alexander is your market value right now, straight up, no draft picks involved. And then 2 of the other trade scenarios that they have are the Chargers for a 4th round pick and the Steelers for also a 4th round pick. So Bleacher Report feels like that if you're going to trade for Davante Adams, probably going to be it for about like a 4th round pick. And then they included some insane trade scenario with the Titans where the Titans give up their #1 overall draft pick, but then that's because they get the Jets 7th overall, also their 2nd round pick, their 2026 second round pick, Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams to all end up on the Titans, which is just fantasy land level stuff. So we're going to ignore that. Basically, my point is the market sounds like somewhere around a 4th round pick for Davante Adams if you were to trade for him, but I don't even think he could go for that much, because then later on, yesterday, March 3rd, there was a report that the Jets will cut wide receiver Davante Adams, and it could even happen sometime this week. So apparently, they tried to field trades on him, probably made some calls around the league. Nobody was biting for potentially a 4th, maybe not even a 5th, 6th, or 7th, and they just gotten fed up with it, and they're like, he's just eating up too much cap space. We just got to cut this guy. We can't trade him. Nobody wants to take on that contract, especially for a relatively high draft pick, mid-round draft pick. They're to the point where they just decided, yeah, I guess we got to cut him. Shouts out to Tony Pauline for the article that this originated from, that this is like the catalyst for all of this. The Jets have a decision to make with wide receiver Davante Adams. Cut him or trade him. Sources close to Adams tell me that the Jets have chosen the former and will cut the receiver, and it could happen sometime this week. And remember that they acquired him again in October from the Las Vegas Raiders for a conditional 3rd. And again, this guy had 854 yards and 7 touchdowns in just 11 games. I feel like he definitely still has a lot of juice left in him. But Ben Standig brings up a good point. He said this is not a move for Washington unless Adams is gettable on a 1-year deal. Hard to imagine that happens, and Deebo Samuel may not necessarily be a true pure wide receiver too, but he'll get touches, and there's still only one football to go around. Daniels can get more out of less heralded players. I mean, again, I'm going to keep bringing this game up. We had a game where Olamide Zaccheaus and Jamison Crowder each had 2 touchdowns in the same game. Olamide Zaccheaus, Jamison Crowder, 4 receiving touchdowns combined in a single game. That's how elite Jaden Daniels is. He doesn't necessarily need the best of the best to go out there and dominate. I would love for him to get as much help as he can get, but we're not desperate for another receiver. And again, to Ben Standig's point, there's only one ball to go around. I know Deebo Samuel isn't a pure wide receiver too. Next to Terry McLaurin, I consider him more of like a weapon than like literally a wide receiver. But again, there's only one ball to go around. And while Deebo Samuel's being used as like this gadget guy horizontally in the backfield as an extra running back, whatever you want to call it, Terry McLaurin's getting his touches and targets. Then we still have a running back. We still have other receivers on the field that are going to be involved as well. I could see a guy like Davante Adams coming in and complaining all of the time because, you know, he wants to not only be at least a wide receiver too, he usually wants to be a wide receiver 1 in a situation, the guy that's getting targeted the most. And if he comes here, I highly doubt he gets more targets than Terry McLaurin. And again, Deebo Samuel's also going to eat into that as well. I just don't see him even wanting to be here, especially after the Deebo Samuel trade. And again, even though I highly doubt it, the only world I'll be okay with Davante Adams is if he comes on, first of all, a very team-friendly 1-year deal, very cheap, making way less money than he's ever made in a single season in his entire career ever since he left his rookie deal. Also, again, he would have to come here and not be selfish, no complaining, no diva act, not giving up on games like mid-game, like literally not going out onto the field when your coach is telling you to, or out there not hustling because you've just given up on the team. Now, granted, he wouldn't necessarily have that problem here because like we're losing or anything like that, but if he starts to pout and becomes a diva wide receiver because he's not getting the touches and targets that he normally is used to getting, accustomed to getting, that's a problem. And then also third, he would have to be okay with not wearing number 17. Remember, that is Terry McLaurin's number. He already has it, and Davante Adams will have to come here and be ready to get another number because he's not taking 17 from Terry. Not at least if I have something to do with it. So those are my 3 stipulations. I don't really care about what he said about the Commanders and our fan base last year. You know, if he comes here and helps us win the Super Bowl, I don't really even care about all of that stuff. Pretty sure he would apologize, take it all back and things like that. But he has to come cheap. He has to come here with the right mentality, winning culture, selfless, willing to split targets with Terry and Deebo Samuel, and accept the fact that Terry is the number 1 receiver and that Terry would keep his number 17. Basically, Terry McLaurin is the number 1, number 17, which again, I highly doubt will happen. I highly doubt Davante Adams will be willing to accept all of those stipulations to come here, even though we are building a Super Bowl contender here, and we're one of his best bets to potentially try to win a ring before he ends up retiring, or even before he starts to get up there to that point in age where he's not a contributor to a Super Bowl team. He's more of like a passenger instead of like one of the main playmakers on it. Because right now he's already 32 years old. He's only getting older. He's still a really good receiver, and he has the type of game with, you know, his route running in his hands and his technique, his nuance being the best part of what he does. So I think he can maybe have like another couple of years of being a really good to great receiver. Because of that, he doesn't necessarily rely on athleticism, which does diminish, you know, as you get older. But still, man, he's only getting older, and he has to look around like, man, what is my best chance of potentially winning the ring? Maybe he'd be willing to abide by all three of those stipulations right there, put his ego to the side, and maybe sign with us. And I mean, ultimately, if he did, again, I highly doubt it. I'm not betting on it at all. I'm not reporting that it will. I'm not even saying that it's likely. But if he did, we would be still getting a really good receiver. I really want to emphasize the fact that this guy managed to get nearly 900 yards in 11 games with all of that chaos and turmoil that the Jets just had, with Aaron Rodgers, first of all, being his quarterback, not being a good quarterback, and then Garrett Wilson, opposite of him, still getting a lot of targets and touches and yards and things like that. So Davante Adams is still a really good receiver. Is he like top 3 or arguably number 1 like he just was a couple of years ago? Not necessarily, but he's better than anything we have on this roster outside of Terry, at the very least. I mean, especially as a pure receiver, he's still better than Debo. I love Debo as a weapon, a mismatch, a Swiss Army knife, but a pure wide receiver, Davante Adams is better than Debo Samuel. Even just last year, in a very down year for him, he had a 75.8 Pro Football Focus grade. And just to let you know, out of all of our receivers last year, including Debo Samuel, Pro Football Focus already updated him and added him to our roster. You have Terry McLaurin with an 82.1, Debo Samuel with a 70.9, and nobody else even comes near. Even Davante Adams on a down year with a 75.8. And he just had a 90.1 in 2022, a 92.7 in 2021, and a 92.2 in 2020. This guy had like a 3-year run of being one of the best wide receivers in NFL history. And it's crazy because it's not like he's just had a fall off in talent. It's just been a lot of off the field confusion, chaos, and turmoil. And again, if he comes cheap, I still feel like he can go out there and perform as a top 10 receiver in the NFL. So we would have 2 top 10 receivers plus Debo Samuel in the wide receiver group. So of course, that sounds like a very fun idea. It just doesn't sound like a very realistic one. So again, I'm not trying to feed y'all hope. I'm just letting y'all know that Davante Adams more than likely will be available. And I'm also laying out why it would be great to get him. But I'm also letting y'all know, and I'm putting my shoulder on your arm, letting y'all know this is more than likely not going to happen for the Commanders. He's more than likely going to end up going to another team, which is cool. I would love to have him. But again, you got to meet those stipulations. I'm not accepting Davante Adams if you take away even just one of those stipulations. I'm sorry. I'm not about to pay even if he puts his ego to the side, even if he changes his number from number 17 and he's okay with getting less targets. I'm not paying Davante Adams ridiculous money. I'm just sorry. It would have to be all 3. Now moving on to another Jets player, cornerback DJ Reed, and this one I feel like is extremely realistic. It was reported March 2nd that cornerback DJ Reed is not expected to re-sign with the Jets, and I'm pretty sure that's more so if he doesn't want to be with the Jets anymore than the Jets don't want him. I mean, if I had to pick one position group, first of all, that I'm very confident that we will spend whatever it takes to get a top player available in free agency, I believe it will be corner. Between offensive line, edge rusher, defensive tackle, all of those other position groups, I feel like corner is the one that we're most likely to try and really get like one of the best guys available in free agency at that position group. Like if it's not Travarius Ward from the 49ers and his past relationship with Adam Peters, then it would be DJ Reed. I feel like Travarius Ward is like my number 1 corner available in free agency, and DJ Reed, I mean, I feel like I can't even necessarily put him 2. I'd probably say like 1B. He's like right there behind Travarius Ward. I definitely have Travarius Ward as my number 1, but I feel like DJ Reed is a great consolation prize right there, man. I mean, again, remember, not on top of the talent that he has, he also really wanted to be traded to the Commanders. He really wanted to be a Commander before the trade deadline, but then we ended up trading for Lattimore, and then who knows? That could have just been because maybe the Jets were asking for more in return in draft picks than maybe the Saints were for their corner. I mean, I don't know that. Just speculate. I'm just throwing an idea out there, but I just wouldn't be surprised if the Commanders, leading up to the official trade for Marshon Lattimore, if they were calling back and forth between the Jets and the Saints, trying to get a feel for what what those teams want in return for the corners that they have that they're willing to trade, and then they just ended up choosing Lattimore for whatever reason, whether it's because they actually prefer him, even disregarding draft capital and trade value and things like that. Maybe they just prefer Marshon Lattimore, period. His talent, his size, everything like that. Or maybe Marshon Lattimore went for less in trade value than what the Jets were willing to give up DJ Reed for. Either way, now DJ Reed is a free agent. We don't have to trade for him. So now imagine how happy the Commanders would be if they ended up with both, too. You trade for Marshon Lattimore, you end up getting DJ Reed as a free agent next offseason anyway. I mean, I would definitely argue that we need both, to be completely honest with you. Like, Lattimore is great as one outside corner. At least I believe he will be once he's 100% healthy and he's had an entire offseason to learn the defense. I believe in Marshon Lattimore, especially, I mean, even before Adam Peters said it, I believed in him. But then Adam Peters has said multiple times this offseason, you know, his ending presser for the season, and then at the combine again, he's reiterated he really likes Marshon Lattimore. He's excited about what he could do, and he's explained the excuses as to why Marshon Lattimore did not get off to the start that this team expected. And then I also feel like this team may want to move Mike Sanderstill back to his more natural position at slot corner. I feel like they only moved him to outside corner out of necessity because we just didn't have other good outside corners that can play. Michael Davis was unplayable, and Benjamin St-Juste, we're going to let him go, is all we need to say in free agency. We're not re-signing him. And unless you're taking corner in the first round, where are we going to get another outside starting corner? I mean, it won't be St-Juste, like I just said, and I highly doubt you're going to depend on a second round or later rookie corner to come in and start outside immediately for a team that thinks they could go to the Super Bowl. I mean, I don't think people understand how rare a Sanderstill is, especially in that context of coming in as a second round pick and starting at outside corner for you. Corner is probably the position that it takes the longest to make that transition, a smooth transition from the college to the NFL outside of quarterback. After quarterback is literally probably corner, as to why a lot of great corners don't really tend to get going until their second or third year. It's really hard to be a really good rookie corner. My point is, we're more than likely not going to rely on that rookie corner, especially a rookie corner that we draft outside of the first round, to be a starting outside corner opposite of Marshon Lattimore while Sanderstill goes back into the slot. And I also can see them more so prioritizing edge rusher or offensive line in the first round of the draft. And so why not go ahead and get your corner in free agency so you don't even have to worry about it when we get to the draft? And so also going back to DJ Reed, I mean, he had a 70.7 overall grade, a 70.1 coverage grade, 71.8 pass rush grade, which is interesting, and a 71.8 run defense grade. A pretty solid corner overall. And compared to the Commanders corners last year, Mike Sanderstill had a 65.8 overall grade, which is again lower than DJ Reed, and Marshon Lattimore had a 56.8 overall grade. I think he'll be way better next year, but my point is, DJ Reed, at least according to Pro Football Focus, and I would argue even by tape, was at least as good, if not better, than every corner we had on roster last year. And if you could pick him up for free, well, draft pick wise, you still got to pay the man some good money. If you could pick him up in free agency, and then you're greedy. You got Marshon Lattimore in the trade, DJ Reed as a free agent, especially, again, this guy clearly showed that he wanted to be a Commander before the trade deadline, and after we traded for Marshon Lattimore, he was clearly upset about it on Twitter. I'm telling you, it's just a match made in heaven. It makes too much sense. Again, Travarius Ward is my first corner that I'm going after in free agency. If we don't get him, DJ Reed, immediately, I'm willing to pay him big money to get him. That's how much I want him. I feel like he's a great fit for the scheme and everything. It makes too much sense. Davante Adams, highly unlikely. DJ Reed, especially if we don't get Travarius Ward, very likely. Now, moving on, the Eagles are also releasing six-time Pro Bowl cornerback Darius Slay. Since we're speaking of corners, if he is designated a post-June 1st release, the Eagles will save $4.3 million against the cap, which is more than likely what's going to happen because they're trying to clear up cap space so they can make sure they keep guys like the Milton kid, the defensive tackle, Zach Bond, their all-pro linebacker and things like that. So I think they're trying to do whatever they can to make sure that they can pay the guys that they really want to retain and try to make another run for a Super Bowl, right? So cutting Darius Slay to get any sort of cap space in return so that you can potentially put that cap space towards re-signing one of those guys makes a lot of sense. What does not make a lot of sense is that for some reason, according to Bovada Official, the Washington Commanders have the second best odds to sign cornerback Darius Slay. Where did that come from? But in the report, they say Slay is a Super Bowl champion, an All-Pro, and a 6-time Pro Bowler. Yes, those are all true, but he's 34 years old. But they're saying that he would be a great fit for Washington's defensive back room and a veteran presence. We don't need that. We don't. No. I'm too good on Darius Slay. Big pass on Darius Slay. No, thank you. Maybe 5 years ago, yes, 5-6 years ago, but not 34 years old. Darius Slay after he won the ring, so he's not even as motivated. No, thanks at all. But the one positive I do take away from this is that the odds makers out there, those Vegas people and things like that, feel like the Washington Commanders need corner so bad that we're second in odds to get Darius Slay if the Eagles end up cutting him. Which sounds like if we're that desperate for corner, it makes me feel like we're even more likely to go and heavily pursue a Travarius Ward or a DJ Reed. If we want Darius Slay, which I highly doubt we do, or if people think that we want Darius Slay, that just shows you how hard we need to go on getting a Travarius Ward or a DJ Reed. Please not Darius Slay. Plus, there are rumors that Darius Slay already said that he'd prefer to play for Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers anyway, which would allow him to stay in the same state anyway and all of that type of stuff. So good. Go over there. Leave us alone. Please no Darius Slay. But of course, let me know how y'all feel about him in the comment section. And then lastly, before we get up out of here, completely unrelated, but shouts out my dog Armani Rogers. The Bills tight end Armani Rogers suffered a torn Achilles while training and will need surgery. So my guy Armani Rogers still having a really rough time in the NFL, really rough career. I mean, just season-ending injuries left and right, man. He's only 27 years old, but golly, man, that may be it for him. I've been rooting for him this whole time, even since he's left the Commanders, and it's not looking good. Maybe, I was questioning why Adam Peters and those guys cut him so early, and that's probably why. They probably foresaw his injury history, the way that his body was set up, that he's probably, even more prone to future injuries as well, additional injuries, and that's what's happening right now. So, Armani Rogers, I was really rooting for you. I'm still rooting for you, but hey, man, it's not looking good. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release a informative and opinionated video just like this one. And of course, if you made it this far in the video, you are to go. I salute you. And like as promised, the answer to the trivia question is Monte Coleman. I would have never ever have guessed that, and if you did, big salute to you, man, because you're a real ball knower. Like, if you got that one, you are a real burgundy and gold fan, for real. No research is necessary. Insane. Salute to you. Of course, make sure y'all don't leave this video without leaving a like, and also let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in the video. Do you agree with me that this wide receiver market is trash? I would go as far to say, how do you feel about Davante Adams and potentially signing him as a free agent rather than having to trade for him? How do you feel about DJ Reed as a corner? How do you feel about Darius Slay? Let me know how you feel about all of that in the comment section. I'm going to try my best to read and reply to as many as I can. And I'm going to catch y'all later with another video later on today / tomorrow. Because again, it's 1:42 a.m. So I guess technically later today. Catch y'all later. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.